You just never really know what you're going to find at a flea market. Let's take a look at this thing. So it's actually been a couple of years since I found this camera at a flea market. And you'll understand why it's been a couple of years since I made a video about it. But when I found it, it was closed up like this. This guy had it at his table. And he had some other cameras. He had some more, well, I guess you call them modern cameras. He had a Canon AE1 and a Konica, I think, and some other odds and ends. And he had this. And so I went to look at it, and this is a 2x3 Century Graflex. So it looks big when I get it up here, but it's actually, it's the baby Graflex. It's the small one. And it's like all Graflexes, there's a button hidden under the leather here that you push this and it opens up. But somebody had closed the front cover, or the front standard, on the cable release, which was still attached to the shutter. And so it was wedged tightly. And I tried pushing the button to open it, and it just was stuck. And so I asked the guy, I'm like, well, I can't even open this thing, what do you want for it? And he goes, well, since, you can't even inspect it really, we don't know if it works, how about $25? And I thought, well, shoot, even if there's no lens on it at all, as long as the bellows is okay, it's worth $25. I mean, the roll film back on the back of it, the 6x7 roll film back's worth $25. The grip is probably worth $25. So I said, yeah, I'll buy that. And so I bought it. And I couldn't get it open. It didn't want to come open. And I had seen at another table, a guy had a bunch of pocket knives, and he had, if you've ever seen one of the old Camillus electrician's pocket knives that has a screwdriver, locking screwdriver blade, he had one. It was a little cruddy, but he only wanted $5 for it, so I bought the knife from him. I mean, I carry a pocket knife, but I don't like to pry with a good pocket knife, and since this one has a screwdriver blade that's flat, I thought it'd be good for that. And so I bought the knife, and was able to very gently, while pushing the button, pop the front cover open, and to my great delight, discovered that it didn't have the little inexpensive 3-element Graflex or Graftar or Triatar or whatever it is. I forget what the name of the 3-element Graflex lens is, but they normally come with a 101 millimeter lens that's just a simple 3-element Cook triplet. Instead, it had, you can see it here, the 80 millimeter f2.8 Schneider Exenatar. That's a high dollar lens. So some of the high-end versions of the Century Graflex were sold with this lens and the 10 exposure roll film back. And this lens, the 80 millimeter, won't cover 6x9. I mean, it'll cover it, but the corners will be a little dark and not very sharp. So, but it does cover 6x7 just fine. And so, I mean, you might not have a whole lot of room for movements, but a little maybe. But this was the way it came from Graflex, was with this lens. And so I bought it, and it looked pretty good. And I took it home, and then I got taken looking at the shutter, and this is what I saw. So somebody had taken the shutter apart and reassembled it with the blades in the wrong order. There is a top and a bottom blade, and there's 3 blades in the middle, and the top and the bottom blades, the tip is curled away from the middle slightly, or from the other blades. And if you get those in the wrong order, you get the top and bottom ones switched, or one of the top or bottom ones mixed in with the middle ones, this is what you get. You get this really messed up shutter. So I went on a search for another shutter to get parts from. And I looked at some options. I have an old Kodak 203 f7.7 anastigmat that's in not a synchro compure, but in a compure shutter. And the threads are the right diameter, but there's a rebate in the threads on the synchro compure that wasn't there in the original compure, and so these elements wouldn't fit it. Plus, it has no flash sync. And I looked at some Copal shutters, but these days nobody manufactures large format, or medium format in this case, shutters anymore. So it's not like you can go out and buy a new shutter. So the price of shutters has gotten kind of high. So just started looking for shutters, and I spotted one at one point that was over $100 and needed repair, and it was listed as a part shutter. And then I just kind of kept looking. I didn't look real diligently, but anytime I got on eBay, I'd kind of dig around and look a little bit. And recently I stumbled across this person that was selling a a 127 Rodenstock Yeeserex, I think it was, or Yeeseron, one of their lenses that they made, and it was in this exact same shutter. And it was listed as not working, and in fact there was no rear element for the lens. And the edge of the shutter you could see was kind of flattened on one edge where somebody had dropped it. But it was the exact same shutter, same version. I didn't have to worry about would the blades fit. It was exactly the same shutter. And it was, the guy had it listed for $65. I made him an offer of $40. He took it, and I got it. So then I took it apart, took those blades, put them in this shutter, cleaned and lubed it, and now I have this camera. So I have a total of, like, what would that be, 25 and 40 plus the shipping. I probably have $75 in this thing now. And I, when they had shut the front on the cable release, they'd kinked it a little bit, and the sheath was pulled back. You can see I covered the last bit of this. I bought some yellow heat shrink tubing, 6mm tubing, so I could. The sheath over time has just, the plastic has, has shrunken over time, and so it's pulled back, and so you can see in this little area right here where it's a little bit narrower, that was kind of bare, and the inner fabric was showing, and so I covered that with some heat shrink tubing. And now it fits in this little place on the top. There's a little, on these Crown, or these Century Graphics, there's a little holder at the top where you put the cable release when you're not using it. So, I've run a test roll through this. I shot a roll of HP5 Plus in it, and we're going to take a look at some of those pictures. I didn't really try to do anything super artistic. I just went out and shot some old buildings downtown, and just, it's 10 exposures. I just wanted to make sure the camera's functional. So once I put this lens back together, I went through the process of making sure the infinity was set right, the rangefinder matched. I put a ground glass on it, make sure the rangefinder was accurate close and far. And this rangefinder was obviously set up at the factory for this lens, because I really didn't have to do anything but line up the alignment of the moving image with the static image, and then make sure it was set to infinity, focus, and everything else fell into place. So it was really easy. So it's really cool. I have this 2x3 Century Graphic, and these are, if you've never used one of these, they're really cool camera. They're like the big 4x5 and really have most of that functionality, except they're 2x3. And they do make a sheet film holder with a ground glass back for this, and I'm going to look for one, not because I in any way want to try to find or shoot 2x3 sheet film, but if I want to use any of the front standard movements, tilts or rise, then having the ground glass would be helpful in setting that up, and then I can pull that off, put the roll film back on, keep shooting. And because these have, like I said, the Graphic has rise. You can see the adjustment here. You can raise the front standard a little bit. It's got a lock here where you can swing it a little bit or shift it a little bit right and left, and I don't think this has any swings. I think it's just shifting right and left and right. So, but you can tilt it also. You can tilt it. So, if I ever wanted to shoot something like architectural where I didn't want to tilt the camera up, wanted to raise front standard, having the ground glass back would be handy. And probably if I were to do that, a longer focal length lens with a little bit bigger image circle would be beneficial. So I might keep an eye out for like a Schneider Xenar or something in the 105mm range. That would be a good second lens for this. Anyway, yeah, it came with a 10 exposure roll film back. Back seems to be working just fine. This has also, if you've ever played with one of these, it has a sport finder, which is a little stiff, so you can actually shoot with that. It's got the viewfinder. The viewfinder is parallax corrected. So on the back of these, you can actually see their settings for the different distances. And so, I have it set to infinity right now, but if I'm shooting close up, I can change the So it's pretty, capable camera, a technical camera, I guess you'd call it. And the price was right. So let's take a look at some of these pictures. You can kind of see what you think, and I'll catch up with you after that. Well, there you go. Like I said, those pictures, I wasn't really trying to do anything more than function test the camera, make sure it worked. Some of those shot on different shutter speeds, and I really didn't do a comprehensive test. I just want to make sure the film magazine worked. There weren't, any light leak problems. I had it out in bright sunlight, so I was hoping if there were light leak issues, I'd find those. And the shutter seemed to work fine. The focus seems to be okay on it. It seems to be accurate. So just a function test, really. But I thought it would be, kind of interesting to kind of see the results. So, like I say, I may look for a longer lens. The 80 millimeter normally is considered a normal lens for 6x6. So on 6x7, it's very slightly wide, not much. It's just kind of like maybe shooting a 45 millimeter lens on your full frame camera instead of a 50 or something like that. It's not much different. But I'll probably keep an eye out for a longer lens, like 105, so I could, bring the front standard out a little bit further, maybe use some movements if I wanted to do something like that. I've got a 4x5 camera if I really wanted to do that, but pretty cool camera. It's always worth keeping an eye out at flea markets. You just never know what you can find. The lucky thing for me is I know how to repair cameras. I used to do that for a living, so fixing this up, not a real big deal. But even if I didn't do that, I got this cheap enough that it would have been worth taking to a repair person to have them fix it up. Now, in this case, it would have been cheap if I was able to find a replacement shutter and the repairman didn't have to find that for me. But anyway, you always have to keep an eye out at places like flea markets and garage sales and yard sales and thrift stores. You just really never know what you're going to find. It's a lot of fun. Well, I hope you enjoyed seeing that. I'm just kind of real happy to finally have this thing after a couple of years, have it back together and working and able to take pictures with it. And the only thing I don't like about it is dadgum heavy. It's really, for a camera, I'm used to some of these little folding 6x9 cameras that weigh almost nothing. But anyway, hope you enjoyed seeing that. If you have any thoughts or questions, please don't hesitate to leave me a comment. I always love hearing from you. And as always, thanks for watching.